Don't give up, don't give up, don't give up, don't give up your day job.
Yes, yes, people. Welcome to Don't Give Up Your Day Job, the podcast where we give you a funny, honest, and sometimes pretty darn deep take on the different jobs people have had to do on the way to pursuing their dreams. Now, I'm James.
I'm Joey.
And we are the Bone
Brothers. Still ain't sure about that.
I think it's getting cheesier every time we do it, but we're
Mate,
in now. What can we do?
It is a big fondue. Jeez.
Mate, we have got...
Yeah, what we got going on today, mate?
We got an incredible guest, Will Armstrong, who the journey he's had is fantastic. I also know him. I used to live with him, so I can vouch for it in my own way. He had a high-flying career in hospitality, working in some of those celebrity-filled restaurants in London that we all know and love. But he had his own problems behind closed doors. He developed some real issues with alcohol and drug addiction.
Yeah.
And he's transformed his life around, man. And he's now working as a sobriety coach, living over...
Good on him, man. Good on him. Good on him. I mean, that's something that, look, it affects the everyday man and woman nowadays, you know. And, look, everyone likes a drink, everyone likes a night out, but it's when do you stop? When does it become an issue? And sometimes it's too late before people realise it.
Let's be 100% real about it. We've had a good time in our time, and we know a lot of people that have also had a good time, and some of those people have, unfortunately, it's got a grip of them. Do you know what I mean?
Big time.
To a point where they need help, and unfortunately, not everyone gets the help that they need. So, speaking of people like Will, we used to live together. I can vouch. We had a few parties in our time. You know what I mean? What he's done to his life, and the fact that he's now really helping people at the same time is a proper good journey. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to having a chat with him. You know, I've been checked his stuff out on the socials, like on Instagram, teetotaltrainer.
That's it.
And yeah, I mean, he is very, very, just an all-round nice guy that he just wants to help people, and he's got the experience to do so.
Well, that's it. You know what I mean? He's using his own stories and experience to shine a mirror on other people. You know what I mean? And help them. How you been anyway? You all good?
Not too bad. Yeah. I mean, I could have done with him on Monday morning because I had a few too many beers on Sunday after the football. But yeah, it's I've been good. I'll be honest with you. You know, I've been doing a bit of running recently. I'm still in the gym. With my Power Jordan.
Guys, when we saw each other on Road to a Million, that you talk about people, everyone sees something in life and they need a change. That was when you got sweating, weren't you? Straight down the gym after that.
Oh, mate, I tell you what, yeah, we'll go into that over the episodes. But yeah, I was a bit bigger than what I am now. Let's put it like that. And through help of my good pal Jordan Williams, who's opening his own gym actually, which we'll chat about a bit more over a few episodes. You know. I'm feeling good in myself, but yeah, I still like a beer.
Listen, one thing I say is everyone's on their own journey. Don't mean that, and not everyone has the same issues with alcohol that other people might do, but certainly Will did have his problems, and he's turned his life around, and I think now's the right time to get straight into the next episode of Don't Give Up Your Day Job with the sobriety coach himself, Mr. Will Armstrong.
Enjoy, guys.
Don't give up your day job.
Hello, William.
Hey, so good to see you guys. How you doing?
Very well, mate. Very well. How's things?
Things are amazing. Things are incredibly warm. And I'm currently in the north of Thailand where it's burning season. So it's actually incredibly smoky as well. So I keep waking up with very tight lungs. But my time here is limited. So yeah, all is very well from my side of the world.
Okay, I'm wondering.
Good to meet you, Will. Anyway, James has told me a lot about you.
Yeah.
Let's just say hello from myself, Joey.
Yeah. Do you know what? I remember hearing a lot about you back in the day when me and James lived together, and I felt like I kind of knew you through that. And then obviously seeing you on the TV show last year, I remember it's hard not to feel like I already know you, even though we've never spoke before. But it's an absolute pleasure, mate. Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, same. Lovely to meet you, mate.
He does have that skill. I was going to say, I think that smoke that you were talking about, it might have gone into your Wi-Fi setup because the screen just froze for a solid minute there. But that is the joy of technology.
As long as it freezes in a good way, like not when I'm like mid blink or sneeze or something, then we'll be okay.
There's no bogeys there, mate. You're all good. You're all good.
No, you're looking sharp, man. You're looking sharp.
So
mate, thanks so much for coming on. Obviously, we'll get into a little bit about how you and I know each other shortly and stuff. But first and foremost, congratulations on everything you're doing. Like, it's a real, your own personal journey has been absolutely a joy to see online. And I know we caught up recently. And now tell everyone where in the world you are exactly. You've made it over to Thailand over the last few weeks, and how's life going over there at the moment?
Yeah, do you know what? I could go so deep on this. So yeah, we obviously caught up recently in London just before I flew back out, and I landed straight in Bangkok. Couple of days there, traveled to the north to a city called Chiang Mai, and then decided I wanted to go back somewhere that I haven't been to in 5 years, which I'm heading to tomorrow, which is a Buddhist monastery on the border of Myanmar and Thailand. So I'm headed up there tomorrow morning. So I've been up here for about 4 or 5 days so far, and making the most of it. You know, it's incredibly warm. The food is incredible. The people are so lovely. And this is, as you know, this is a one-way ticket for me. So I'm just on my own journey.
Yeah,
work completely online, and I can do that from anywhere in the world. So I thought, why not come to the north of Thailand with it?
Brilliant.
And that is really, that's why you give up your day job, isn't it? Going into this, because you're living the dream, Will. I mean, James has told me a little bit about you. I've started following you on the socials, and mate, hats off. Like, if I could do it, I would. That it looks so much fun, and you're doing a great thing as well. Like, we're going to get into what you're actually all about, but mate, it's a joy to watch someone doing what they love.
Do you know what? That's so nice, because I felt like I was on the flip side of that. When I first came out here 5 years ago, I'd saved up some savings, and I thought, I just want to get out, and I want to see the world, and I want to get out of my comfort zone. I want to see things. And it's actually why I absolutely loved the show that you guys were on as well, because I was watching it like, I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to be sat around a fireplace in the middle of a jungle, just like feeling real life, maybe without the bottle of whiskey. Although I do also know what that feels like as well. But it was something I saw 5 years ago, and I saw people out here working from their laptops, and I had this moment where I thought, I want to be able to do that. I want the freedom to do something remotely, but I don't want to just find anything to do. I want to find something that fills me up, something that gives me that purpose. And I realized that one of the most transformative things I did with my life was I stopped drinking and I stopped taking drugs. And when I realized that I had a blueprint, I had a plan, I had a system that worked so well for me that I could replicate for other people. And when I started to try that, people started changing their lives left, right, and center. And I thought, there's something in this. And then the second thing I found was that there's a lot more people struggling than we think, a lot more. And I thought, well, do you know what? This is, even though, last week I was in Thailand, but I barely even saw the sunshine because I was behind my screen 15 hours a day, helping people. So it's from the outside, it can also seem like there's this, it's you come over to Thailand and you're having a jolly, but I'm an incredibly driven and compassionate person with what I do. So, I dedicate so much of my life just trying to help others get that same freedom,
Yeah, no, it's really inspiring to see it, and obviously, for where you've come from yourself on a personal and a professional level to be where now, it's a real, like, when we caught up just before you went away, it was honestly so great and inspiring, man. Do you know what I mean?
And what a satisfying, it's nice to help people, isn't it? It's lovely to see people that are struggling. If you can give them a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of a pat on the back, just a shoulder to cry on, to help them do that, and for them to come through stuff, whether it be really small or massive, then it's amazing for all parties concerned.
I missed a little bit of that. We glitched slightly, but
we glitched.
We glitched. But do you know what? It's exactly that. Honestly, I've never felt so fulfilled in anything I've ever done. And when I started this, I said to myself, if I can just help one person, if what I do helps one person, I'll feel amazing. And then I did help one person. And then it was natural that I moved the goalposts a bit further. I went, actually, I want to help as many people as I possibly can. And that is still the goal. And it's the goal every day when I wake up is I just want to help as many people as I can. And to do that, I have to scale this bigger and bigger. So that is the operation at the minute of just creating the biggest coaching platform to help people who struggle with alcohol and cocaine in the world. And that is my goal. And that's what is going to happen. I have absolutely no doubt about it.
And there's plenty of those people about, for sure.
Fantastic.
Most of them used to live in my
And
flat.
on that note,
Yeah. I was going to say, I think I've shared a flat with a few of them.
no comment. and on that note, sir, I think it's we've obviously got a great understanding of where you're at now and the great work you're doing, but that is very much part of a journey that you've been on personally to get to where you are. So let's go back a little bit. Well, let's go back to even before you and I knew each other. Like how was school, and when we talk about drinking and drugs and stuff, that kind of aspect, where did everything sort of begin for you? Like, what was school like, and so forth?
Well, do you know what? I always used to think that my drinking started when I was 13, when your mum buys you your first bottle of beer and you taste it and you get a bit of a buzz and you're like, oh, that's kind of nice. But when you think about it, it started when I was 4 or 5 years old and you watched your parents drinking, you watched their friends drinking, you were taken into pubs on New Year's Eve. That's when the programming starts. That's when I started to see that drinking was an adult thing to do. It was a natural, normal thing to do, which it is in the UK, And then what I found was that when I started drinking, I really enjoyed the effects. It was really nice to feel a bit of a buzz. And it was the first time in my life I'd felt anything other than just reality, And especially when you're a teenager, you have all these hormones and you don't really know how to make sense of it all. Drinking felt like just a bit of an escape. It was a bit of fun at the weekends to kind of switch off. And then what I didn't realize at the time, but when I reached the age of 15, I started to develop pretty severe social anxiety. I didn't realize what it was at the time. I thought I was just a nervous teenager. But it was this weird dichotomy that I was very confident in myself. But I would find that in social situations, I would have panic attacks. I would completely blush. And I felt like everyone was watching me. And it felt like a very self-centered, egotistical thing to go through. But I felt like everybody cared what I was doing. And obviously now that I'm older and much wiser, I realize no one cares what I'm doing. No one cares what anyone's doing. All we think about is what's going on with us. And when I realized that later in life, it made me feel invisible, which was the best part of it. It's the same reason why I feel comfortable sharing some pretty dark things about my personal life through social media, And I found that through those teenage years, did I glitch, by the way?
No,
just a little bit, but you're okay.
No, we're locked in. Yeah.
Through those teenage years, I kind of made an identity for myself as the party guy. In the year, it was like I was always there. I was the most drunk one at the party. I'd love it, but I still didn't touch drugs. Like for me, like I was in my head, I'm like, you can't touch drugs. Drugs are illegal. Drugs are bad. Drinking is fine. Drinking is cool. So I kind of, went down that path, and I still, I played rugby. I loved being sporty. I wanted to go to the gym.
Yeah.
And then I ended up, because of this social anxiety, I didn't feel like I was excelling academically. I mean, it was a factor of it, but I wasn't the most academic. I was creative. I loved music. I played the drums. I loved to do art. Like that was what I loved, but I wasn't able to follow that passion through parental pressure and the expectations on us. And it was like, no, you've got to get a good degree. You've got to get a good job. And I ended up going to university simply because I felt like it was what was meant to be the case, but I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy going to, and in fact, before I went there, I actually had a really quite bad knee injury through playing rugby, which meant that I couldn't have my exercise, which was the one thing that made me feel pretty good. So all I could do was drink. So my drinking at university just got ramped up, and I was drinking a hell of a lot at university. And again, I felt like it was what helped my anxiety, but in fact, it exacerbated it. It made it so much worse. Because, go on.
And also, you're in an environment at university where that is the central celebrated, like, you know, basically as soon as you hit Freshers Week or something like that, it's like, you know, that I've heard it said before that alcohol is like the only drug in the world where people think you've got a problem if you don't drink like in excess. Like, do you see what I mean? So like, as soon as you hit university, it's very much like that party boy identity.
I mean,
gives you impetus to carry on. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
I never went to university, but you know, everyone I know who's been, you know, my wife Hayley has been in, as James just said, from Freshers Week onwards, it's like every night of the week and twice on Sundays, you've got to be smashed. And do you know what? It's great while it lasts, but if, like yourself, you know, just from listening, I'm hanging on every word at the moment. It's amazing how you're talking, but it's I can tell you're developing a problem. There's a problem building up here, and you know, when you're young, you don't think you've got any problems, you don't think you've got any issues, but clearly it will catch up with you at some point.
100%, and I think that's what really made it worse was that it was just glamorized. That identity that I was creating, I was suddenly put into an environment where that was celebrated. That personality you're creating, which is actually the escaping of reality, is glamorized. So Freshers Week, I remember it was one of the toughest weeks of my life, and I just didn't stop. And then when everyone slowed down and started studying, I didn't stop. I just kept going because for me, when I was drinking, it was the only place I could feel comfortable in my own skin. Outside of that, I was anxious, I was awkward, I was nervous, I wasn't that confident. I felt like there was a brick wall inside of me that I just couldn't open up, and I couldn't be myself until I'd had a drink. And because of that, I ended up failing university. I did my first year twice and then got kicked out. And still to this day, I've done some pretty terrifying things, but telling my dad that I had not got through my first year of university is up there as one of the biggest. It was terrifying, man. And
what uni did you go to, Will?
It was Loughborough, so it was a big sporting university.
Oh, right. Sporty one, yeah.
Yeah, because that's what I went for.
What did you?
I turned up with an injury, so I couldn't even play anything, you know.
Yeah.
I was going to say, when you told your dad, what did he do? Did he take you for a beer or something?
You'd expect that, right? Well, the funny thing was, I knew that I had to give a reason. Because, you know, I don't think of myself as being someone who is not mentally on the ball. Of course, I could have done everything that was happening, but there was a block, and that was my social anxiety. Now, I remember sitting down with my parents and telling them, listen, I've been kicked out of university. And they said, why? And I said, it's because I've looked into it. I have severe social anxiety. I can't be around people. And funnily enough, my dad just said, oh, that's fine. Everyone has that. We're going to get you some therapy. Very, very nonchalant and casual, which was actually, I guess, quite nice for me that someone could hear it and actually take the weight out of it and be like, that thing that's been like causing you so much pain and chaos for years, someone can just be like, oh yeah, that's fine. Everyone's got that. And ended up going to therapy, and we would talk about, you basically break down mentally what's going on. And, you know, we would write it down, and we figured out that I was having around 300 panic attacks a day. Like, I would sit in my room.
Jesus.
Oh, my word.
I would sit in my room alone. Honestly, it felt like the world was about to end, and no one's around me. It's just me by myself. So we actually broke a lot of this down, and we had homework. Like, my homework was to go to the pub, and when I feel anxious, look around. Which of my friends is looking at me? If they are looking at me, do they care what's going on? Can they tell how I feel? All these different questions. And it was quite a nice challenge to kind of break these down, like, step by step. And it actually helped. It really helped for a couple of years. And then once I got a job where I grew up in a restaurant, just something to pay the bills, ended up falling in love with that industry simply because in a restaurant with social anxiety, it's all about control. I want to control the social situation. Now, there is no more control than when you are managing a restaurant because everyone's sat down and you can walk away from a table, you can speak to them. Like, it was fully in my control. So I ended up feeling more comfortable at work than in my social life. And when you feel more comfortable at work, you turn into an absolute workhorse. Like I couldn't wait to
Yeah,
on 5 hours sleep. I was like, can't wait to spend 15 hours there today. That's my safe place, you know? And that's
Yeah.
where things got intense.
It's always it's interesting. I always feel like the hospitality industry is almost like an extension of, say, like the entertainment industry or something like that. Like it's very much like it's very adrenaline fueled. People are, you know, a lot of big personalities that kind of come together in a very often high pressured situation and have to deliver at certain points. So it's almost like a drug in itself, isn't it? When you really feel like you're kind of have to deliver a service. It's
and
quite
also
addictive.
they're going to use that as a release as well. So these guys that have been smashing it for 10, 12, 18 hours all get together. There's loads of drink, possibly drugs, and there's an explosion and it just happens, you know?
100%. And I think, like you say, it was a performance. Every time I would go to work, you'd go into the changing rooms, you'd put on this waistcoat, this tie. It was almost like you were putting on your character. And you'd go out there, and it was this, for me, it was the most beautiful art form to be in this absolute chaos. But you were so switched on mentally, which I am not diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure I've got ADHD, as the rest of the world does at the minute. And I think it was just, it really kind of helped me to focus and be like, I loved that chaos. I loved the pressure. You know, like the idea of sitting in an office all day, it wasn't me. I wanted some sort of chaos in my life. And when I moved to London, I found somewhere, you know, I was working at the Ivy, which was such a huge establishment. That was when there was only one Ivy. Apparently there's, you know, about 700 of them now. But when there was one, I was there, and it was just...
Yeah, that's just in Carshalton.
Yeah. And it was just the wildest experience. And you would meet so many people every day, which is what I loved. I loved meeting people. And I had this huge social personality, which I could finally release. So I was like, the more the merrier. And those were the years when I met you, James.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I was going to say, mate, I mean, I can't, like, thinking about now, I mean, it was actually like an incredible achievement from your point of view, because you were pretty young to then be going straight into I can't remember whether you were maitre d' straight away or you worked yourself into that position, but you know, you really, from your struggles at uni, you'd found a niche for you that you'd hit the ground running and quite quickly became quite successful at it, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing that was unexpected, was that someone who could drop out of university and get absolutely tanked all the time still had this incredible drive. Like when I knew what I wanted, I was like a dog with a bone. I was like, I want to be that position. I remember seeing the Ivy and seeing the maitre d's and thinking, I want that. I will do anything to get that. The same way, if I've had a couple of beers, I'll do anything to get that gram. It was pretty much the same drive, you know. I'm like, I just want it.
It is, isn't it? That's it.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. And that's why I
sure.
tell people, anyone who struggles with alcohol or drugs, you have a gift. You have that insatiable need to just get something, but it's just being used in the wrong way. It's the same reason why when I see anyone who I coach out of it, they all achieve incredible new heights, because they just have that all or nothing mentality, which I know I have as well. And when I started at the Ivy when I was 21 years old, and it was quite overwhelming. And I think by 23, I was maitre d' there. And it was, I didn't tell anyone my age who came in, because they would have seen me differently. I looked a bit older, so it was nice. I actually feel like I get younger as I get older now, because I'm not drinking. It's fun.
It's all that sunshine, mate.
Yeah, I was going to say that'll be the non-alcohol and drug intake, mate.
I did look very haggard at 23, to be fair.
Do you know what? I don't think Joe ever came to the flat, but obviously you and I lived together for 7 or 8 months above the kebab shop in Essex Road, which for anyone that's ever done a flat share in London, it was basically a 2-bed flat converted into 4 bedrooms. Yeah. And me and Will basically had 1 bedroom that with a piece of plywood down the middle, and so we had our own individual habitation. And that flat almost summarised like your 20s in London, and it was so eerie, like. I'd be doing a job that I wasn't particularly interested in at the time, but it was in advertising, and it was out 3 or 4 nights a week, boozing like hard, and then get to Thursday, massive night out on the Thursday, going to work on the Friday, drinking from like lunchtime all the way through, drugs from like Friday evening, and basically going through to like sort of Sunday evening and then realised I'd like to go back and do the job that I didn't really want to do again on the Monday. But because of the nature of your work, I'd be coming down on like literally coming down on both levels on a Monday morning, coming into the kitchen of the flat, and you would have just finished your shift from the weekend, and it would be like that's when your party would be starting or carrying on into like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It was one of them, wasn't it?
Yeah, and
I'm a bit gutted that I never moved in, if I'm honest.
It did feel great at the time. I don't want to put a complete damper on it. It was like there were some good moments, but looking back, it was like fucking hell.
You know
that
what?
was pretty hardcore.
That flat and the memories I have there are some of the most intense highs and intense lows of my life. Like, I wouldn't change a thing. I would not change any of it because it had to happen to get me to where I am now. And for that, I'm so grateful. But the times in that flat were wild. And I guess, again, because I was working such opposite hours to the rest of society, that was also what I loved, that kind of rebellious part of my mind. Maybe it's the middle child syndrome. I'm like, I just want to kick out against the system. And the fact that everyone's on the way to work on a Monday morning and I'm sat on a rooftop, having a few bumps and a few fags and a few bottles, 8 a.m. on a Monday, I was almost like flicking the V at everyone on the bus, like, yeah, you look at your life.
Yeah.
And I think...
I was one of those people, Will. I remember you doing that.
That's how he waved you off on a Monday morning.
Like,
Fuck off.
But it was such a wild experience. And that flat, there was some sort of energy about that flat that was just sucked people in. And yeah, we lived together, like you say, for about 8 months, and I barely saw you. We were just, passing ships in the night.
Yeah. It's such a strange vibe, isn't it? Like, it's like you are sort of, I mean, that's what your 20s is, full stop. You're sort of like living on air a lot of the time, just going through. But it was I do look back at those times, and I can't remember half of them. Like, I've
They must have been good then.
Yeah, like I lost a good couple of years, and like just from being on the sesh and just going through it, like it was a crazy old time, man. But it was at the same time, I'm so glad that we actually did live together, because to be here now, having that conversation with you is just a great roundabout of life,
Yeah, and I actually think, even having this conversation with you right now, I don't think we've even gone that much into depth about these times. So it's actually a really nice kind of cathartic experience talking about it now. But I found that I joined that flat and I loved the idea that we were young, we were in London, we're all kind of like doing our own things, we're partying. Like, those were in my head, like the glory days. And then once I realized that about 15 people had been and gone through that flat and I was still there, I had a bit of a moment like, maybe it's time for me to move on here. This is, this is getting a bit much. And that was also the time when I moved away from the Ivy, and I got an amazing job opportunity. I went to a hotel in Marylebone, and I wanted to take it even more seriously. And I had in my head, I always wanted to be a general manager of a top London establishment by the time I was 35. That was my goal. And I'd done that by the time I was 27. So in my head,
wow.
I'd given myself an 8-year free pass where I'm like, whoa, I can slow down now. I can actually really enjoy it, Again,
so which an alcoholic and a junkie is like a passport to fun times, isn't it?
Yeah, and because I was managing the bar, right? So, I'd been there for a few years in the restaurant. I moved over to the bar, and I had free reign. I was in the evenings.
Wow.
I was the most senior person, so there was no one there to tell me no. So I remember we used to have a tequila that we'd serve for £75 per shot, and I would have a bottle to myself most nights. Just as I'm going around the bar, I have a shot with the guests. And the thing is, it probably sounds like really sad, but in fact, if you'd seen it, it looked incredibly glamorous. I never drank by myself. I was drinking with billionaires and A-list celebrities. How can that look like there's an issue, And that was the wild part of it. It's really difficult to see an issue when everyone else is saying that it's not. And that was where it became a bit of a challenge to me.
Do you know what, though? I have to say, I think that if it can work in your favour, I think the nature of the work that you were doing brought to the forefront any problems that you had a lot quicker. Because if there's some people that maybe work in a more serious, like, corporate job or on a building site or something like that, it's a bit of a different journey that they're on. Whereas your job is literally that social environment where drinking, drugs, everything is encouraged. So if you have developed a problem, which a lot of people do, very quickly it's like it could go either way. So you realise quite early on in your life, really, that I could either carry on down this road or I've got to make a change for the better.
Oh man, I completely believe that I have won the lottery. The fact that I recognised there was an issue at the age of 28, and I now get to spend the rest of my life from 28 onwards to be in the mindset I'm in now and to have the opportunity to grow and to progress and to become a better person and to give more to the world. I have no doubt those years of pain going through it, beyond worth it. Beyond worth it. If I had to go do them again, I would. If I get to experience this, you know.
Your day job.
Right, so Will, I mean that story is that's the sort of thing I live for, mate. Listening to things like that, and working in that industry, and where your places you have worked, you must have bundles of them. So keep going. Just give us a few more. You don't have to name any names, but some situations, and that'd be fantastic.
Well, do you know what? It was, like I say, it was very difficult to notice there's an issue when you're surrounded by people that you see as incredibly successful. They're in Hollywood movies and they're the biggest rappers and rock stars in the world, and you're surrounded by them and you're doing drinks with them and then you're having drugs with them. And, I remember there was one night in particular when I walked into the bar. Obviously, it was quite a status, even in London, to be running this bar. So when I came in, everyone wanted to speak to you, and that did nothing but inflate my ego further. But what I would do is I'd walk around the bar and I'd say hi to people, and they'd say, "Let me get you a drink." And I'm like, "Well, I'm working. I can't just stand there with an old fashioned, but give me a shot of tequila." So I'd have a shot of tequila, and I'd go around the bar one by one, having a shot of tequila with everyone. And, I remember there was once I had an entire bottle within 40 minutes of tequila. And it's about 8 p.m. at work.
Fuck me.
So what I would do is I'd go and find some of my staff and I'd be like, "Guys, go and find me some Coke. I need to level out." And there was one night I remember one of my staff, he gave me a gram of Coke. I went down to the toilet and I wasn't thinking. I just poured the entire thing out and did it in one go. And then I looked up in the mirror and I looked into my eyes and I remember thinking to myself, "You've just really messed up. That is not cool." And I went up to the bar. And it's 8:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, and people are coming into this really nice venue to be like, "Oh, we're going to have nice drinks and dinner," and I am just whacked out of my mind. And some of the we go up to the hotel rooms and we party for like 2 days, and these are the sort of people which that paparazzi waiting outside to see if they can get a glimpse, and I'm in the room with them, and it was madness for about 4.5 years, which was the amount of time I was there. But the good thing about that,
in places like that, the drug dealer's the most popular person, isn't it?
Yeah, and do you know what? By the end of it, I realised I've got the T-shirt. There's nothing I'm not going to miss out on anything. I've been in situations that most people couldn't even imagine existed. And once I did that, I was like, yeah. I've had drinks with very, very famous UFC fighters, Wimbledon winners, like straight after the event, like all these different things, and especially with people that you wouldn't even expect it from. And when I got to the point that I decided to stop, that was a really challenging time, because how do you go from one night drinking a bottle of tequila, doing loads of blow with all these famous people, the next night turning up with a glass of water, like, "All right, not tonight, guys." Like it didn't fly in that place,
Well, that just stems from what you said, that people look down on people that aren't drinking. You're the odd one out because you're not drinking. And unfortunately, that society, it's like what you've developed, whether it be a drug problem or alcoholism, it's like an industrial injury in your line of work, because every night you've got to be centre of attention, Mr. Popular, sorting everything out for everyone else. The minute that you say, "Oh, not tonight," they're like, "Oh, who's that guy?"
Yeah.
And that's not cool.
That's willpower. I mean, that is serious willpower. But you have to get to a point where you say, "Do you know what? I don't give a shit anymore." Like I think that's the point, isn't it? When was that moment, mate? I guess it is obviously a build up and a culmination of like years on hitting it hard. But was there like a specific
Catalyst
or situation where you were like, "Do you know what? I need to make a change"?
There was, and I had basically been working about 10 days in a row. And I'd get to work at 11 a.m. I'd do my office work, then go to the bar in the evening and leave at like 6, 7 in the morning. So I was getting 3 to 4 hours sleep, and that was all I did outside of work, and then get straight back in for another one. And on top of that, some of those nights I wouldn't sleep. I'd drink all the way through and go back for another 20-hour shift, you know? And it got to the end of the 10 days, and I'd organized with a couple of friends to get out of London, go up to the Lake District and do a bit of hiking, you know, just get out and enjoy some nature. And that night before we went there, I was working, and I decided to have a shot to celebrate because I was so excited. And next thing I know, I've kind of come to, I'm sat in a flat on Oxford Street with 2 guys who I didn't even like, and there's about a kilogram of cocaine in front of me. And I remember just being,
Wow.
what time is it? And my train out of London was in about an hour and a half. It was 2 p.m. And I had no idea how I got there, what happened. I ended up turning up at the train station, an absolute mess. My friend saw me, straight away said, "You need to sort your life out, mate." And I am so grateful for that friend, even though at the time, that made me so angry. My ego was so big. I was like, don't you dare tell me sort my life out. You don't. And it was crazy how lost I was. But I remember really being hurt by that statement because I knew it was true. And that was why things hurt the most, because we know deep down it's true and we haven't accepted it. We ended up going up to the Lake District. We still had beers and we had a few drinks, and, you know, I was still smoking. And then we did this hike, and it really tested my headspace. I don't like heights. I never really got out into fresh air, and I got to the top of this mountain in the lakes. I sat down and I just got punched in the face with this reality check. Like, what are you doing? What is it? Is this what your life is? You're just going to spend the evenings getting out of your mind and not achieving anything, not living up to your potential, not being the person that you really want to be. And it was the first time I'd had something like that, and it was really quite overwhelming. And I remember on the train back to London, I was, you know, we were kind of quiet on the way down, and I'm staring out the window, and it was raining as it does every day. And I was kind of looking out of the window as if it was like some sad music video. And I was like, do you know what? I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to do a week with no alcohol, no drugs, no cigarettes. I want a week, because I'd never done a week before. Like, imagine a week with nothing. That sounds crazy. And I got to London, and my typical fashion was, I'm going to tell everyone. I'm going to tell everyone I'm doing a week. It's going to be amazing. And 2 days in, I was like, scrap that. I'm going to go to the pub. I want a beer. And I told my colleague, listen, after work, let's go have a few swift ones, just have a catch up. And he said, but didn't you tell me you're not drinking this week? And I said, yeah, but do you know what? It doesn't matter. I can have a few beers. It's fine. And literally he said to me, no, I'm not going with you. You told me you're having a week off. I'm not going with you. And if it wasn't for him...
Hats off to that guy.
Fair play to him.
If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be sat here on this call with you now. I know I wouldn't. Like, that boundary he set, I remember being angry. I went home like, oh man, it was just a beer. Like, what's the big deal? But I went home, and half an hour later, I was over it. I was like, okay, I'm going to have some dinner. I'll get an early night. And as the week progressed, I started to feel really good. I got this like clarity, and the fog cleared. I wasn't hungover anymore. And I got to the end of the week and I thought, I feel amazing. I tell you what, I'm going to try 2 weeks. I'm going to go 2 weeks. So I did it. I did 2 weeks. And this was like, I'd never done this in my life, 2 weeks without drinking. And I was waking up with energy. I wasn't feeling guilty or shameful. It was amazing. And then Did
you feel quite a big change? Because a lot of people say, have had issues, like it obviously the first few days can be a little bit tricky in terms of just purely not having a drink, but quite quickly you can notice changes mentally and physically, and even how you're sleeping and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was so quick. And like you say, I was very lucky because I took it to the extreme so quickly. It very obviously became an issue. This is funny, the people who I see struggle the most are the people that it doesn't cause enough pain for. The people that are, I'll drink once a month and I hate it. I feel hungover. There's not enough pain to motivate change. There's not enough fear of the future to motivate change. But if you're in a mess, if you're in a real mess, you are ready. You're like, I need to do anything. Whatever it takes, I'll do it. And that was my mentality.
Well, it goes back to what you was...
Go on.
It goes back to what you were saying, about the all or nothing mentality that you have, that you've got to experience the super highs to then experience the super lows, and it's worked in your favour in that respect.
Exactly. And one of the teachings I use a lot is that In fact, I'll tell you that after this next bit. So after 2 weeks, I had this courage and clarity, and there was a girl I really liked, and I said, "Do you know what? I'm going to ask her out on a date." I think she'd been waiting for months for me to do it, but I was always drunk and out of it. And I thought, "Do you know what? I'm going to ask her out. I can't wait." So I asked her out on a date. She said yes, and I didn't know how to tell her I wasn't drinking, because in my head, if you don't drink, you're really boring. Like that can't be good. How can you meet someone without drinking? Go on, James.
I can vouch for that, because in my London years, when I went on a couple of online dates when I was like in a non-drinking period, and I was considered, they just ghosted me straight after. Maybe it was just my chat, you know what I mean?
A lot of people ghost him when they meet him when he's drunk as well, though, you know?
Yeah.
No,
I think it might have been my personality more than the drinking. Isn't it?
Hard to believe, mate. It was definitely the no boozing, but I didn't know how to speak about it. I didn't know how to communicate it at this time. So she turned up, and I remember I gave her a rose outside Angel Station, and I was like, really, like, I'm into this date. And as we're walking,
Smooth.
Thank you, guys. As we're walking to the bar, and in fact, you might remember this bar, James. It was called the Bar with No Name. It was on Essex Road.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. I love that little bar. They did great cocktails, and I was taking her there. And on the walk, I said to her, "Listen, I'm not going to drink tonight," and that did not go down well. And I didn't know how to communicate why, because I didn't even know why. But I was just like, I just don't want to drink, and that doesn't fly in today's society. And she said, "Listen, why don't you drink tonight, and then you can stop again tomorrow?" And that made logical sense in my head. I went, "Yeah, okay." And also, I wanted the date to go well, so I ended up drinking that night. And that was the weirdest experience of my life, because it was like being conscious to what alcohol was doing to me. It's like trying to resist general anesthetic, but there is no resisting it, right? I got into the bar and I have it, and even though she's talking to me, I couldn't focus on anything besides the feeling of, like, I could feel the alcohol kind of like going down my back and into my legs, and I felt this buzz and this tingle, and it was a strange experience. But I didn't do any drugs that night. I didn't even smoke a cigarette, but we drank. And to be fair, we had the most amazing night. We went to a restaurant where we ate in the dark, which was amazing. We went to Slim Jims on Upper Street.
Yeah. You just literally listed all the old haunts that we. Yeah, I remember them. Yeah.
But that was the last drink I ever had. I snuck out a Corona in my jacket out of Slim Jims and drank it on the street on the way back to Essex Road. And
gotcha, mate.
And I woke up the next morning, even though it was a great night. After 2 weeks of feeling fresh, I had this familiar haze, fog, sluggish, oh my God, like a bit of anxiety and shame and guilt, and I had to go to work, so I started feeling anxious about that. And it was after having such clarity for 2 weeks and seeing that, a switch went off in my head, and it was like, it doesn't matter if it's your dad on his deathbed telling you, "Please have a drink with me." Nothing in this world will ever get me to drink again, and that is it. And I made a promise to myself that day: you are never ever going to drink again in your life. It doesn't matter what the challenges are; they cannot be as difficult as going to work off 3 days of no sleep. So we're going to figure out what that is, and it's almost 6 years to the day that decision was made.
Well, congratulations, mate. I mean, that's really superb. Props to you.
I think, you know what, you touched on a really important point there for anyone listening and watching, and obviously people familiar with yourself who are going through a similar issue. I think one of the big issues that people face is the stigma around being in a social situation and not drinking, whether it's a date or whether it's, people don't go down the pub with their mates rarely and say, "I'm not having a drink," or something like that. It's very hard for people who actually do not want to have a drink, but overcoming that social stigma still to this day. Have you got any, just a quick word of wisdom for anyone that might hear it even?
100%. And, it's that kind of all or nothing mentality I have, which means that I've been obsessed with this for the past 6 years. I am constantly speaking with, I've spoken to thousands of people about their struggles, and it's very clear there's two types, right? There's the internal pressure or the cravings, which we need to challenge, or it's the social pressure. The social pressure is the biggest one, because it's so unnatural to walk into a pub and just say, I'm going to have something other than a beer, because it brings attention. And when I was in that space, I was trying to figure out how to communicate what I was doing. And the one thing I found was I couldn't say that I'm a non-drinker, because one, I didn't have enough proof to myself to believe it. But my identity was still that I'm a party guy who isn't drinking. I'm not a non-drinker. I'm a party guy without the one thing that I usually have. So I tried a whole plethora of different things to say. So the first thing I said was, listen, guys, I'm just not drinking at the minute. And the one thing that always happens, if you say that, you're going to get pressure. They're going to put pressure on you to drink.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because they're basically saying,
course.
you're basically saying, I'm not drinking at the minute. Like, it's temporary. I don't even, and when it's temporary, people are like, why do it? If you're going to go back to it, why are you taking a break? Just have a beer, like just chill out, So I found there was so much pressure every time I said I'm taking a break. So I thought, listen, I want to be able to say something that really just gets people to just understand and stop. So then I tried, I'm sober. And I hate that word. I don't like the word sober. Sober implies that something was wrong and you're missing something. It has a heavy meaning. And I found that out because I would say to people, no, I'm actually sober. And it was like they'd seen a ghost. They were like, oh my God, this guy must have had a big issue. I don't want to, okay, and they'd apologize and walk away. So I'll be like, well, now I'm just on my own, It was very difficult to just get past that. So then I thought, you know what? I'm just going to tell people I don't drink. And that is the most confusing thing in our culture. If someone says, you're going to have a beer, what do you want? You go, oh, I don't drink. And I used to be confused as a drinker when people said that. I'm like, what you don't, like, have you ever drank? What do you mean you don't drink? You must have so much money. Like, that was what I always used to think, right?
It is a stigma, isn't it? Like that's the whole thing. But you've got to own it, I guess. It's just taking that ownership of it, right?
That's it. And, I've done so much work over the years in terms of tonality, body language, the language you use. And it's all about how you say it. So many people, when they stop drinking or they want to stop drinking, they're doing it because things were bad, right? It was a negative reason. So when someone asks why, everyone presents this negative reason. And they do so with a lot of shame and heaviness. Like someone says to me, why are you not drinking? If I was to be like, do you know what? It was really bad and I've been really depressed. That's not nice bar chat. No one wants you to drop those bombshells. So when people said to me, they're like, why don't you drink? And I just say, well, I'm happier without it. I'm a much better person without it. You don't want to see me drink. Yeah. Just something like lighthearted. And people would be like,
yeah.
I used to say to people, oh no, if I start drinking, trust me, I won't stop. And they would also go, oh, that's the same as me. And I go, yeah.
Babe.
And it was like, it was almost this anomaly, like we have a choice in this. Wait, so if you drink and you don't enjoy what your drinking is anymore and you wake up and you're not happy with it, we rarely understand that we have a choice to go against that and go, do you know what? I don't want to do that. And most of the work I do with clients and my coaching program, very little is to do with alcohol or cocaine. That's the foot into the door. Because once you're in, we go deep into psychology. We look at your behavioral patterns. We look at your narrative, your thought processes, how you feel about yourself, your self-care routine, the insights you have. Who's holding you accountable? Where's your connection? Do you have a community? All of these different things. So, in fact, looking at the alcohol and cocaine side, it becomes very apparent that that's not the problem. That's how we're dealing with the problem. And that was
that's like the cherry on top
it's
of the root cause of something that probably goes back to childhood or whatever or something.
Exactly, 100%. And, once I found the way to communicate it and to do it, like you say, with pride, because if removing alcohol and cocaine from my life has improved it this much, that is something I should be proud of. We never feel shameful
Without
about training for a marathon or working hard to get a promotion. It's like, why are you training for a marathon? You're like, I felt really fat and unfit and I wasn't happy with my body. No, you're like, I want the achievement. I want things to get better. I want to, and that was the same mentality I used. Just, it was all positive,
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing story, Will. I've like I say, I'm speechless. I'm hung on every word you said. It's and hats off to you, mate. You've listen. Everyone loves a story about how wrecked people get, and people do funny things. And alcohol should be fun and is fun for the majority of people. But when it becomes an issue and a problem, you need to be able to say no and do that. And as you've said, there's so many people who can't do it, but to see someone who's able to have done it yourself and is now coaching people to become better people, to improve their health, their well-being, their lifestyle, just their general, day-to-day aura, it's amazing. And, I've loved it. I've loved every minute of this.
No, it's really helpful. And on that point, you know, we know where you're at now in terms of your business and helping people and stuff. How did that transition go from just looking after yourself first and foremost, making sure that you're in a position where you can be the best version of yourself, to transitioning into becoming a sobriety coach essentially, and deciding that you wanted to help? Is it that going back to that passion that you have and being all in with something?
Yeah. Well, I think naturally what happens when I removed all those things is suddenly I had more energy. You know, I thought more clarity. So I thought, right, I'm going to get back in the gym. You get into the gym, suddenly you want to eat healthier. When you're training and eating healthier, you sleep better. And that cycle just starts to get better with all these positive habits. And I had this moment where I was going through this process of becoming healthier, happier, but I'm still working all these late hours surrounded by people who are just getting on it all the time. And this actually helped me a lot because it made me incredibly comfortable in these environments. But instead of having that mentality I started with, like, I'm going to prove that I can still go out and be that fun guy, I got to a point where I thought, who am I proving it to? Why do I want to be here? Why do I want to be up at 4 a.m. while everyone's out of their minds? And I had this huge epiphany and I thought, do you know what? I need to get out. I've been living in this comfort zone of my life for so long. I need to change something up. So I ended up breaking up with my partner, who was the girl I went on that date with. We ended up staying together for a few months. I broke up with her. I quit my job. I got rid of my flat and I booked a flight to India by myself. No idea why. I just knew I had to get out. I had to see more of the world. I had to get out of those four walls of that hotel. And
out of the bubble of like London, which is an amazing city as well, but it is, especially if you work in the hospitality, it's a bubble, isn't it? And you need to burst it, I guess.
And this is something I found over the years so much, that the most pain I can ever be in is if I stay comfortable for too long. I have to challenge myself. I have to push myself, because otherwise I'm not stimulated, and I feel that's where anxiety can creep in, because I feel like I'm not achieving. But that's not to say I don't relax. You know, I've had a lot of chance to relax here in the sunshine. You know, I've got a nice pool and a gym. But I spent a year.
We're in the wrong game, mate. We're in a studio in suburban South London.
If it was daytime, I'd love to give you a little tour. But I ended up spending that year by myself, and I just travelled for the entire year. And I did some of the most incredible things. You know, I spent a night camping in the fourth biggest cave in the world. I drove motorbikes through volcanoes in Indonesia, stayed up for 3 days without sleep doing those things. And then I traveled through some of the sketchiest parts I've ever been to. And I lived with the monks in Thailand for a while. Like I did things that the old Will would never even have dreamed of. And I spent that year doing the most intense introspective work on myself, just to understand, you know, just to go back to basics and be like, what is the goal of this? What am I trying to do? And then even deeper of like, who am I? Like I've been so disconnected from myself for so many years, which is what alcohol did. It suppressed me. You know, it suppressed any sort of processing of emotions or thoughts. I didn't have any headspace to think. And then when you spend a year with no responsibility, no job, no partner, no direction, you have a lot of time to think. And that is a luxury that most people don't have. People can't just disappear for a year. But I did. I created that, which is also why I have that in my arsenal that I can offer to people, that in-depth space where I've gone so deep so I understand exactly why not everyone does everything, but a very good understanding of what motivates us as humans on a day-to-day basis. And I found this to be very useful, not only for myself, but now I can recognize patterns in other people.
Yep.
So being that all or nothing, it's very easy for me to find something and go all in on it. And as you can tell by the way I'm talking today, I could talk for hours and hours on this because I find it so fascinating. And I know in such depth all of what we do and why we do it. And that is the gift and the knowledge that I can offer to people to get them out of their own situations.
That's brilliant, man. It's so inspiring. Obviously, having known you for so long and kind of reconnected recently, really, it's so inspiring to see your own journey and how you're helping people. And on that note, before we do wrap up, how can people get in touch with you, whether it's on socials or directly? If people are struggling and they want some help, how should people get in touch? The
best way is probably through Instagram, which is my handle is teetotaltrainer. So teetotal, as in total abstinence. Teetotal trainer. I have my content there. You can book one-to-one calls with me. We have a 7-day online course, and I have a team you can book in with as well.
We'll put a link on our socials as well for that, guys, if you need it.
Definitely, mate. No, it's so great to see how you've come on, mate.
Yeah, congratulations, Will.
You've transformed your life.
Lovely chatting to you, man.
And you have literally given up one day job, and now you've got a far more fulfilling one that's taken you anywhere you want in the world. So keep that dream going, brother.
Yeah. So just to round it up, I mean, you've been all over the world and you've climbed mountains and the like. But obviously, this is why we're doing this. We ask every guest the same question. You know, when I was approached to do Road to a Million, and we got involved in it, I chose James as my partner. So who would you choose for your partner to try and win £1 million and climb a few mountains?
Oh, wow. What a question. The thing is, nowadays I have a much tighter circle of guys, and there's one guy in particular I would choose hands down, which is my friend George, who lives in Bali. And it's
cool. When
I speak to him, it's like speaking to the same person. So I know we would probably not get as far as you guys, but we'd give it a good go.
I don't know, mate. I've seen some of your fitness workouts. Yeah. I think you'd get I think you'd do that mountain a lot quicker.
I couldn't get on a cable car over Rio. I guarantee you that. That's too much.
It's good to know, mate. Well, George, if you're listening, Will's your man. Will's your man, mate. So thanks so much for coming on. We obviously the podcast that we're doing, we want to speak to all different kinds of people doing all different kinds of things and learning more about you guys. And it's been really inspiring. And as I say, if anyone is listening and just feel like you need a bit of support or some advice, give Will a shout at Teetotal Trainer. William Armstrong, thanks so much for coming on. Don't give up your day job.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Will.
Thanks,
lovely chatting to you, mate.
Loved it. Thank you so much.
All the best.
Chill. Bye now, mate. Bye-bye.
Don't give up.